NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. Woo!
As an adult, don't we all miss spring break? Nothing like taking a week off from all your responsibilities. Well, here's the next best thing for adults, a spring break from house payments. SaveWithConrad.com can help you get rid of all your credit card debt, just like that. We're routinely helping our listeners save $5, $6, $7, even $800 a month. And you don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket to do this, but check this out, no house payments for 2 months. It's SaveWithConrad.com.
Welcome to Something To Wrestle With.
Something to Wrestle With.
Bruce Prichard.
Bruce Prichard. Well, you know.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something To Wrestle With. Kinda, Bruce Prichard? What's everybody want to talk about today? I know what you want to talk about. Not WWE being sold. Not Cody Rhodes losing in the main event of WrestleMania. We want to talk about the nostalgia. That's why we're tuned into Something To Wrestle. We want to feel the way wrestling made us feel a long time ago. Today, we're going to be celebrating the late, great Bushwacker Butch. We're going to be doing a little Bushwackers remix today here on the program. As one might guess, this has been a busier week than Bruce Prichard ever imagined. Lots of moving parts in WWE land these days. The rumor and innuendo is that Bruce Prichard's going to have a few days off. And it's happening next week. And he's not going out of town. I'm hopeful I get to use those few days to put several in the can, so we won't have to do any remixes or call any audibles. As you probably imagined, we were supposed to tape the show on Tuesday, and then we bumped it to Wednesday. And then we were supposed to tape on Wednesday, but it got bumped to Thursday. And, well, here I am on Friday morning telling you, get ready for Bushwacker Butch. But next week, by goodness, he tells me we'll have 3 days to record. So, cross your fingers, hope for the best, and enjoy Bushwacker Butch, our very special tribute episode. You know, listen, I kind of slept on the Bushwackers as a kid. They weren't really for me. I could tell they were there for comedy, and it was a different thing. It just wasn't for me. But I mean, listen, I had the action figures, and I knew the licks and the arm movements, and who didn't love the song and that great moment in the Royal Rumble. We're going to talk about all that on this Something To Wrestle episode. But now that I'm an adult, I have a totally different appreciation for what those guys did. I mean, it's a real second act because you had really two sides of their career. The bloodthirsty, blood and gore, hardcore version of them. And then the more famous, more well-paid, more world-renowned Bushwackers. And I think it's pretty cool that they were really, two sides of the same coin, that they were able to pull off both of these presentations. And my old pal Cassio Kid tells me they were his favorite tag team as a kid. And at first I was like, you gotta be shitting me. But then I realized, man, that's what wrestling's about. Like, I liked the Steiner brothers as a kid, right? That was my favorite tag team as a kid. Yeah, it's just one of those things where as an adult, you have a different appreciation. And I can appreciate that. Hey, you know what the Bushwackers were? Man, they were fun. And when you boil it all down, that's what wrestling's supposed to be. Wrestling's supposed to be fun. And I think sometimes we tend to take this, we fans, tend to take this a little too seriously. What's wrong with having some fun? Let's go have some fun. I think that's what the Bushwackers would be telling us to do today. Let's enjoy a stroll down memory lane and enjoy the simpler times. Let's have a little fun with the Bushwackers here on Something To Wrestle. Bruce, what's going on, man? How are you?
Just enjoying the new happy year.
Well, happy new year to you. I am excited to be with you here. We're knee deep in 2021 now, and This is going to be a great month here on Something to Wrestle, and we're going to get things started in a big way. Of course, last week we had Raw is Federline, but today we're going old school, baby. We're talking about the Bushwackers. Pretty fired up about this one.
Yeah, I don't think I ever met him.
Well, thanks for tuning in to Something to Wrestle, boys and girls. Don't forget to use Steven Singer and Geico and everything else. All right. So serious business. Today's show is all about New Zealand Kiwis, or the sheep herders, or I guess what we all know as the Bushwackers. We're talking about Butch Miller and Luke Williams. They weren't the only ones in the team, as we'll learn today, going back in time to learn all about the wacky team that once upon a time was anything but cartoony. Can you tell us about, the origins, when you first meet these two guys, or at least see their work, because they've been around a long time before they're the Bushwackers?
Well, actually, man, saw these guys in the magazines, and it was Jonathan Boyd and Luke Williams who were the original Bushwackers. Johnny got hurt at some point along the way, and there was a breakup of the team, and they went back to what was the original New Zealand or Kiwi sheep herders, which was Luke Williams and Butch Miller. I said that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Goddamn. I'm a little punchy. So they had been the Kiwi sheep herders. They had worked in New Zealand, Australia, and around is that they had done stints in Calgary, and then Jonathan got involved. The three of them worked as a threesome for a while. And then John kind of went his own way, and John started taking his hand in booking positions. I know John booked a little bit in San Antonio for a while and other places, but they were some unique characters. I met Jonathan Boyd first, and for whatever reason, John was coming through, I guess, Dallas at the time, and had done a couple shots in in Dallas, and he came through when we were with Southwest, and he was just Jonathan Boyd. So I didn't know, but I had met and been around Jonathan a little bit. And then there was a point around 1983, maybe 82, 83-ish, something like that we broke away. The Houston wrestling office broke away from Southwest Championship Wrestling in San Antonio, and Bill Watts had bought into the territory into Houston. He was a third owner. Well, San Antonio, which was run by Joe Blanchard and, of course, Tully Blanchard, they had, I'm trying to think, Tully may have been booking at that time, but I can't remember exactly who the hell the booker was. But they were going to crown a new world champion. That's what you do when you break away a lot of times, is you crown your own world champion.
Right.
So they had this tournament and everything, and they made their TV, and they put their TV in Houston, which was, folks, this was before cable. This is where you had to get placement on a local station. And Southwest Championship Wrestling got placement in Houston for their show, and they were going to have the finals of the tournament take place at the Summit in Houston to crown a new world champion. Terry Funk was a part of it. Adrian Adonis, Lou Thez was going to present the championship, and so on and so forth. And Luke and Butch were there that night. So George Napolitano, who is a good friend of mine, and George is, people always talk about the Apter magazines and Bill Apter. Well, the counter to Bill Apter was George Napolitano, who basically shot for every other wrestling magazine that was out there. Apter shot for the London publishing magazines, and George Napolitano was the guy, his counterpart on every other wrestling magazine, if you will. So Napolitano and I were friends, and we went out, and he says, "Hey man," he goes, "can you give us a ride back to the hotel? I'm with Luke and Butch." I'm like, "Sure." So they get in my car, and immediately Luke pulls out a Ferdinand Snavitz and fires it up. And he goes and he passes it to me, and I said, "No, thank you, man. I don't smoke. I don't do that." And I'll never forget the advice that Luke gave me at that point in time, because this was 82-ish, maybe. I don't think it was 82-ish. And I remember just going, no, I don't swing. He says, stay straight, mate. That's my fucking advice to you. Stay straight. Always remember this, mate. You want to make it in the business, you stay straight. And, well, boy, I didn't take that advice. But it was a great night. It was a great night out with those guys. It was the first time that I'd ever gone out. We went to a Denny's. And Luke ordered one side of the menu and Butch ordered the other side.
Really?
True story.
I'll take this half. And he said, I'll take that half.
Yes. Cause I was falling like this. And, and he's like running his finger down the menu. And the waitress was looking at him going, yeah, which one? He goes, no, this falling on this side. And yeah, it was great. And they damn near ate every bit of it, which, remember this story, Conrad, because we're going to come back to it in a little while as we go on and we get to talking about the Bushwackers. This was just the sheep herders, and they ate the fucking menu at Denny's.
Well, okay. Don't think I've ever heard a story like that before.
And they were, just the nicest, two of the nicest, most genuine guys you'd ever want to meet. And then you fast forward a little bit to them coming into the Mid-South territory, the Universal Wrestling Federation, whatever the hell it was called at the time. And, man, we got to spend a lot of time together there.
They started wrestling, I believe, in 1966. Is that right?
That sounds about right. Yeah. Hey, Luke, you old fucker. Yeah, there's some old fuckers, but Luke to this day still looks like he's just 49. But when he was 29, he looked like he was 49.
They obviously work in New Zealand and Australia and Singapore, Malaysia, Japan, all over. But then they're booked in North America in the Grand Prix, which would have been Quebec, the Maritimes, Ontario, Vermont. This was a promotion owned by the Vachon family. And we've talked a little bit about them lately, especially with our Pat Patterson episodes. Did you ever work with the Vachons in a promotional capacity?
Never did. I got to, Mad Dog had worked Texas for Paul Bosch, and just kind of, hi, how you doing? I was very young at the time, but later years working WWE, when Maurice did the color commentary for Montreal, I got to work with Maurice, and he was just fucking class act, man. I love Maurice.
They're going to bounce around all over. They're back in New Zealand in late 78. They make a stop for All Japan Pro Wrestling in 79. And then they're back here in the States. They're going to work the 50th state big time wrestling. And then later that same year, they moved to Oregon to work for Don Owens' territory. We haven't spent a ton of time talking about the Pacific Northwest Wrestling. What was the rap on this promotion when you were coming up?
The Bomber Motel, man. That's where everybody stayed, at the Bomber Motel in Portland, Oregon. I think it's still there. And how it got its name was there was a World War II bomber airplane that was in the lot, kind of propped up, and it was the Bomber Motel, and that's where all the boys stayed and everything. And Don Owens, it was a small territory. You didn't make a shit ton of money, but you made money, and it was a promotion that I would dare say everyone that went through enjoyed their time there. I don't know anybody that really ever had a bad word to say about Don Owens. His brother, what the fuck was his brother's name? Eugene, or maybe in Eugene, Oregon, or I don't know. But Don's brother used to have, in one of the spot shows that he ran on a weekly basis, he would have the shooter championship. So he would have one match that he would have the guys go out and goes, all right, guys, this will be a shoot. Whoever wins the shoot, you get 50 extra bucks. Of course, guys go out and work the shoot and split the 50 bucks. Elton Owen was his name, and it may have been Eugene, Oregon, where he did the shoot matches.
That's tremendous.
But I love that shit.
Let's talk a little bit about what they're going to discover here. While they're working for Don Owens, they start a bit of a year-long feud with Roddy Piper and Rick Martel. Talk about the talent there. And this is where their name is officially changed to the New Zealand Sheep Herders. You just told us that once upon a time, the Bushwackers knew a lot about the old chocolate cake, as Jim Ross used to call it. But boy, running around with Roddy.
What is chocolate cake?
The Fernum Schnavitz. He said once upon a time that was Bobby. Yes, you didn't say it earlier.
Okay.
I thought you were trying to be
not chocolate cake either.
It was a code word for him and Bobby Heenan. Heenan would say, "Hey, do you still have any of that chocolate cake left up in your room?" And then that would be their way to excuse themselves in a public setting and go put a shower cap over the smoke detector.
I used to just say, "Hey, you got a joint?"
Things are changing.
Yeah.
Roddy Piper, sheep herders. You think they had any fun together?
Yeah, I think they did, man. Hot Rod liked to party, or Hot Rod liked to have a good time. I think you got to throw into that group probably at the time that they were there. Buddy Rose, who Paul Pershman was his real name. Good Lord, man. Buddy could party like there was no tomorrow and gave Piper a run for his money. That's for damn sure. But yes, it was a hell of a crew there. And I imagine that would be a place to be and have a hell of a time, make some money, and learn the biz, if you will.
The next stop is the NWA. It's Crockett Promotions in Charlotte, North Kakalaki. They win the Mid-Atlantic Tag Team titles on their third weekend there from Buzz Sawyer and Matt Bourne. They would, of course, later lose the belts to Rocky Johnson and Dewey Robertson. They even spent a little time in Puerto Rico in 81. Puerto Rico is a blood and guts territory. That was at least the reputation, but that fit this version of the Bushwackers back when they were the sheep herders just fine, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because they love the blood and gore, man. And part of their gimmick was that they were a violent tag team, and the sheep herders would do whatever it took. And it was a lot of blood and guts, much like the original Sheik, Eddie Farhat. It was, you saw the sheep herders, you were going to see blood.
Of course, when they leave Puerto Rico, Butch wants to move closer to home and be with family. So he returns to Australia and New Zealand to wrestle, but Luke sticks around in the United States and he reforms the team with Lord Jonathan Boyd, and the duo of Williams and Boyd quickly gain a reputation as being super violent and hard hitting. And there's actually diehard fans, I think, who still prefer that version as opposed to the Butch and Luke team. Did you have a preference?
Yeah, I did. I like Butch and Luke. I like Butch and Luke because they were seamless and they were equals. I always felt with Johnny that Jonathan Boyd would try to kind of take over a little bit and be the leader of the team. And maybe it's just from knowing them, outside as well. But I felt that the sheep herders, as Luke and Butch, they were equal and they were one. They were one in the same, which is what made them such a great team. With Jonathan and Luke, it was two guys.
It felt less like a team and more like two individual stars.
Yes.
I see. In late 81, Southeastern Championship Wrestling sees the team of Robert Fuller and Joe LeDuc split up after LeDuc turns on Fuller, and LeDuc then brings in the sheep herders to be part of his Commonwealth Connection stable to fight against Fuller and his family. We haven't spent a lot of time talking about this promotion, but they were doing big business once upon a time as well. I think this is the promotion my dad actually grew up on because he still talks about Jimmy Golden. But Joe LeDuc, man, quite the character. And I guess Robert Fuller was too, right?
Oh, hell yeah, man. Joe LeDuc was a guy. When you look at Joe, I think a man on the street, you'd look at Joe and think he was crazy from the look in his eyes, but he wasn't the biggest guy in the world. I mean, Joe was probably 5'8", maybe, and not a real big guy, but a very intimidating and menacing guy. And then Fuller, hey, back in the day, the Fullers in Alabama, they ruled the roost, and they were the biggest damn baby faces you ever wanted to have, and some of the nastiest damn heels that you ever wanted to have. And I'm willing to bet, Conrad, that if you were to call Ron or Robert right now, they could probably sell you that Alabama territory.
Well, I'm a big collector of things like that. So
you should go and talk to them and say, hey, Listen, I was thinking about, like running in Alabama, and I understand that you guys own it, and they'll make you a deal.
Well, that's great news.
Well, yeah, I figure you'd like to know that. That's inside scoop.
Boyd and Williams next appear in Memphis. Of course, this is Jarrett and Lawler, and they make their debut in 82. I think it's October. Right away, they're working in a feud with Jacques Rougeau and Terry Taylor. Boy, that feels like a thrown together team right there. Jacques Rougeau and Terry Taylor. I just think of them as the Quebecers and the Red Rooster, and that's a little weird.
No, that's like your goddamn white meat babyface back in the day. It's just, holy cow, man. They were two young, good looking guys, all the girls love, and bring them in. Of course you'd team them.
Well, here's the thing. They're very quickly programmed in a major way in Memphis because of course the sheep herders beat the shit out of those two guys, Jacques Rougeau and Terry Taylor. Eventually our baby faces, get the upper hand in a coal miner's glove match. One of the first times I've ever heard of that. But then later that same night, the sheep herders come back.
You didn't hang out with coal miners back in your day?
I did not a lot of coal mining in Alabama.
What really fucked me up more than anything?
What?
Is when I actually saw a coal miner and I realized that their gloves didn't look like that.
Yeah.
I thought that was like standard issue coal miner's glove, that everybody got those. And by God, if they ever commenced a fight and it was on. I mean, I wonder what kind of matches they had if they ever got in a fight and everything. It says, all right, we're going to take coal miner's gloves off, but we're going to, I don't know.
There's no way they actually call it a coal miner's glove.
Well, if they're a coal miner and they wear a glove.
Oh no, I'm just saying, do you think the boys these days say, well, let me take off my wrestling boots? No, they say, I'm going to take my boots off.
Hey, wait a minute. Hang on. Wait a minute. Did you lead me there on purpose?
No.
Oh, okay. So anyway,
no, hit it.
I'm going to tell you, this is a true story too. This is one of the goddamnest things where I was like, just beyond myself. You know that I'm like a 3-time black belt Hall of Famer.
You remind us every week. You remind us every week. We hear it every week.
Well, I sometimes you forget. Sometimes you need to remind people. There was this guy, and he's no longer with us, but he was a black belt, and he was a very pretty kicker. He was a very good point fighter, but like if it ever came to real life, he would just shrivel up in a ball type thing. And he and this other guy, some guys cut him off, and everybody, like the typical thing you do in Texas, road rage, before there was such a thing as road rage. Well, guys cut him off and they pull him over and get out in front of him. And this one guy, Kevin, and actually, goddamn, both of them are no longer with us. So Kevin says to Sam, now Kevin was the one that everybody thought was so great because he pretty kicks, man, beautiful kicks. He could nail you with his kicks, but never hurt you. And Kevin says to Sam, he says, hang on, Bubba. You go hold them off while I get my boots off, because I got to have my boots off before I get into a fight. Because I'm like, wait a minute. What the fuck, man? If you're going to kick somebody, I'd rather kick them with a fucking boot on.
Yes.
Than my goddamn bare feet.
Yes.
It's like, what the fuck are you doing throwing a goddamn roundhouse kick or a hook kick in a fucking fight? So, yeah, I thought that's where you're going. They had to hold them off while I get my boots off, Bubba.
You thought I knew that story?
Well, I thought everybody knew that story.
Okay.
There's at least 3 people listening to this that know that story. I guarantee you right now.
Well, I'm glad we spent all that time on it.
Well, exactly. So
the sheep herders return to the ring after the coal miner's glove match later that same night, and they defeat the territory's top stars at the time, Lawler and Dundee. And boy, this is a different time. I think most everyone listening to this knows that Jerry Lawler was not just a comedy figure for the WWF. He was one of the top drawing acts in America for a long, long time. He owned and dominated this Memphis market in a way where, I mean, he was over to a level that almost no one ever could be again. But Bill Dundee,
I don't think anybody in the history of the business, the only rivals maybe would be Von Erich and Dallas, but Lawler over in Memphis, unlike any other star ever in the business.
Well said. So chat me up here. Bill Dundee, not a name we've spent a lot of time talking about. I don't think some of our younger listeners, maybe if you just grew up on the WWF, you don't know exactly how valuable he was, not just as a behind the scenes figure and a booker for Watts, but boy, in Memphis, that fella was over, was he not?
Yeah, definitely, man. I think that, Dundee and Jerry rival each other. Nobody came close to the magnitude of over as Jerry Lawler. And if anyone could say that, hey, they were in the hemisphere, it might have been Bill Dundee during his time there. Yes.
Let's keep it moving here and let's talk about what's next for the fellas, because they're going to stick around here in Memphis for a while and even work with the fabulous ones, Stan Lane and Steve Kern. Most everyone listening to this remember Stan Lane as being part of the Midnight Express because that's where they got national exposure with WCW. But dude, Stan Lane and Steve Kern as the Fabs. And by the way, Steve Kern, for some of our hardcore WWF fans, this is what's going to one day become Skinner. But before they were the Midnights and before they were Skinner, Lane and Kern as the fabulous ones, this is one of the big breakout acts from Memphis, right?
Oh my God. I want to say that it put them on the map in a lot of respects as far as two guys. And during the Fabs run, I dare say that the Fabs rivaled Lawler for the biggest babyface attention in the territory at the time. But you said Stan Lane and the Midnight Express. Good Lord, I would never even go there in a million years. That's how much I associate Stan with the Fabs. And I actually had to think about it. I was going to correct you and say, no, you mean Heavenly Bodies. But I guess Stan was a part of the Midnight after Dennis left. But to me, the Midnight will always be Bobby and Dennis. And Stan will always be the Fabs. Stan and Steve will always be the Fabs.
They do big business everywhere they go, the Fabs and sheep herders here. But March 28th, 1983, that's their last match at the Mid-South Coliseum. I guess we should also mention here, the Mid-South Coliseum ran wrestling from 1963 to 2006 right there in Memphis. Of course, those later years, it's less of a staple. But once upon a time, this was a weekly stop, and Memphis was one of the hottest markets around. So for you to come in and do big business there, while maybe it didn't have the best pay around, that's maybe a story for another show. Lord, you could get big exposure in a big market that would get covered in magazines and dominate TV in a way that no other territory did, right?
Absolutely. And, Mid-South on Monday night, that was what it was all about. And I think about when I went there for the first time, had to be maybe 82, 83, whenever Tom was working there. Went to visit Tom in Memphis, and the building was pretty much a shithole then. But it got worse. It got a lot more run down as time went on. But you think about those traditional buildings and they are glamorized, and you think about it. Now, the Mid-South Coliseum is the Taj Mahal compared to the Dallas Sportatorium, but both are held in such high regard that Mid-South just kind of got run down after a while, and they didn't take care of it. And the newness had run off. I mean, the damn thing was old.
Let's talk for a minute, just as a sidebar. Let's chat about important wrestling buildings. Sportatorium, Madison Square Garden. I know you're going to take issue, but ECW Arena.
No.
Mid-South Coliseum. Are there others that we're missing that were just like synonymous with pro wrestling?
Oh yeah. Sam Houston Coliseum, Kiel Auditorium, the Cow Palace,
Cow Palace,
and the Sportatorium in Tampa.
The Armory there.
Yeah. Well, the Sportatorium where they did their TV in Tampa on North Albany.
What about, left me. Center Stage. Would you consider that one?
No, not even.
I mean, I know.
And again, because I'm looking at tradition, I'm looking at longevity. ECW Arena was what, 3-4 years. To me, that's not
What about the
was
Omni?
legendary that, oh my God, I've got to go work there. People wanted to work. It was a dream to work Sam Houston Coliseum. It was a dream to work the Sportatorium, the Garden, Kiel Auditorium, the Cow Palace, places like that, because they were just legendary.
What about the Omni?
I would throw the Omni in there, yeah, in later years.
Aaron tells me that was like his Madison Square Garden growing up in Rome, Georgia.
Yeah, I think too, a lot of people definitely in the Southeast, the Omni definitely was. Because it was Atlanta, man, and that was a stronghold.
This episode is sponsored by BlueChew. Guys, let's talk about sex. Remember the days when you were always ready to go? Well, now you can increase your performance and get that extra confidence in bed. Listen up, BlueChew.com. BlueChew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. And the process is simple, y'all. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversation, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. BlueChew's tablets are made here in the USA, prepared and shipped directly to your door, all in a discreet package. I'm telling you, this has been a game changer for me and so many of my friends. I've got a friend, and I won't say his name, but this is what he uses on Valentine's Day. This is what he uses on her birthday. Like, if there is an anniversary in your future that you need to celebrate, this is what the person in your life really wants. Okay, they probably want to unwrap something. Yeah, they would like flowers or chocolate or you to take them to dinner. But when it's all over, they want to feel like they used to feel. And the way to do that is for you to feel the way you used to feel. I'm telling you, man, it's like, remember that movie? Oh, gosh, Jim Brewer was in it. And he would ask, right? Did you ever try so-and-so? Did you ever try so-and-so? On BlueChew. Come on. BlueChew wants to help you have better sex. Discover your options at BlueChew.com. Chew it and do it. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try BlueChew free when you use our promo code WRESTLE at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com. The promo code is WRESTLE to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we want to thank BlueChew for sponsoring today's podcast. Serious business. They've been riding along shotgun here with us on Something to Wrestle for a long, long time. They help make this possible for us to do this every single week. We greatly appreciate their support and hope if you haven't tried them, you'll check them out. And maybe if you've tried them before, try them again. Somebody's got a birthday. Somebody's got an anniversary. You got to do something nice. Come on now. BlueChew.com. Use the promo code WRESTLE. Boyd Williams resurfaced for the San Antonio-based Southwest Championship Wrestling several weeks later. Their first targets are the tag champs there, Lynn Denton and Tony Anthony. We haven't spent a lot of time talking about those guys. You got any Lynn Denton or Tony Anthony stories?
Wow, Lynn Denton was trained in Houston. His dad, I can't remember. Actually, his dad may have been Lynn Denton too. That may have been a junior. But his dad trained him, and Lynn was always kind of viewed as an independent guy and as an outlaw wrestler when Lynn first started. Lynn finally was able to get in with Bill Watts, and he changed his gimmick, obviously, from Lynn Denton to the grappler with the club foot and everything. It was that was a game changer for Lynn Denton, and then people actually got to see what an incredible worker he really was. You know, it was weird back in the day. If you were in a territory and there were people running opposition to you, they were viewed as outlaw promotions. Anybody that worked on those shows were like, they were ostracized and they wouldn't be used in the major promotions, because if you're going to use the television on the major promotions just to promote your show, that was a no-no. And Lynn was just trying to, when you think back on it, think of how ridiculous that is in some ways, that Lynn was this really great young worker. he was fucking tremendous. And then he had to put a hood on and get a break somewhere else and really get over to be able to move on and really launch his career. And I think he had a hell of a one, and probably will go down as one of those unsung heroes of a guy that was an excellent worker and knew how to get people over. Lynn and Tony, they similar in size, but Lynn was much stockier and a better, muscular build. But they became the grapplers, and it was kind of the idea that they could interchange during a match and what have you. But Tony Anthony was from, I think, Knoxville, Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. And Tony was, again, another guy that was – Tony was an okay worker. Tony was a good worker. But I think that kind of hooking up with Lynn during this time was the best thing he ever did.
What was the relationship that Bosch and Watts and the Blanchards had, or the Funks? I mean, you had so many Texas territories. We've never really spent much time talking about that. What was the opinion of Joe Blanchard amongst other promoters? For
the most part, it's, my opinion skewed, is they looked at Joe. Joe kind of broke off from Dallas originally to have his own booking in his own territory, no longer using the Dallas booking office originally in the 70s. And then in the 80s, worked a little bit with Paul, and then that fell through, and then went back to doing his own thing. Joe had a relationship. Joe could always get the Funks, but Paul could also get the Funks. Joe was, for the most part, relied on his bookers. Paul Bosch relied on his own relationships with talent. So Paul could get guys that Dallas couldn't necessarily get, or even Bill, for that matter. Joe would have to rely on his bookers. I don't think, and again, from our viewpoint, Joe was not a good promoter, in my opinion. I don't think that he was not a good businessman. I'll never forget when he sued everybody in the world for antitrust because his business was going in the toilet. And the judge asked him, the plaintiffs or defendants or whatever the hell it was, the defendants, was a list of the who's who in the wrestling business. He listed everybody. I mean, he sued everybody. So as the judge is going down and they're sitting there, one of the lawyers asked Joe on the stand under oath, he says, I see here you're suing Vince McMahon. Is that Vince McMahon Sr. or is that Vince McMahon Jr.? Not knowing that there's not really a junior, but right. It was Joe Blanchard's answer was, well, the old man's dead, so I guess I'll sue Junior. I remember reading that in all this shit going, oh my God, how in the hell is this case even going on? And of course, the only people that ended up paying anything and going through with the lawsuit was Paul, Bill Watts, Nick Bockwinkel, and Peter Burkholz, and ended up paying Joe something to go away. But I don't think that Joe wasn't like one of these revered promoters that, oh, I've got to go and work there. And Paul wasn't, someone who promoted a territory. Paul promoted a town. So they could come in for one night and be gone and be out.
Just having the context of what you just explained, Tully Blanchard having a chip on his shoulder makes a little more sense, doesn't it?
Oh, hell yeah. And Tully has a chip on his shoulder for a lot of reasons. Tully Blanchard, in his college football days, Tully was a hell of a quarterback. I mean, an excellent quarterback at West Texas State. But he was a little on the small side for what they were looking for in quarterbacks at the time. So I think that Tully maybe really wanted to play pro football, but couldn't make the cut. So he had that chip on his shoulder, plus he was the promoter's son. So there were a lot of things that I think attributed to the chip on Tully's shoulder. But one thing nobody could ever take away from him, he was a hell of an athlete. and an incredible quarterback and an incredible worker too.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you've ever looked this up, but if you're listening to this, go look up Tully Blanchard's stats. Just type in Tully Blanchard, West Texas State stats, and you'll see, he had 9 rushing touchdowns and a ton of passing touchdowns, 16 there, but his 74 season, he had a QB rating of 103. Our big time football fans will know what that means. That's a big number, especially when maybe some of us didn't know what a talented football player he was.
Yeah, very much so. And I think Tully, in some ways, I don't, resent would be the wrong word and wrong phrase, but I think there was a part of Tully that may have resented, being left to go into the wrestling business. Well, and I think he's done pretty well for himself, but, I think the chip on his shoulder may have come from that.
Let's keep it moving here. Let's talk about what we're doing next. As we mentioned, they're in Southwest. They're going to reform, a new tag team in the Memphis territory. This time it's Jonathan Boyd and Rip Morgan, who's the nephew to Butch. And they're going to team as the Kiwi Sheepherders, trading wins with the Fabulous Ones. But let's talk about the originals. Luke and Butch return to the mainland USA for Bill Watts UWF, and they defeat Ted DiBiase and Dr. Death Steve Williams for the UWF Tag Team Championships in March of '86. But ultimately they lose to the Fantastics on March 30th. But they continue to work for the UWF. But when you're bringing, talent in like this and you're putting them over 2 of your top stars, DiBiase and Doc, Bill Watts was a believer in the Sheepherders. Fair to say? Absolutely.
And they were, again, Bill used to, Luke and Butch aren't small guys. And it's funny, whenever I talk about, these guys were little, sometimes in my head, I compare it to early 1980s WWE, where it was land of the giants in a lot of respects. But even in the South, in Texas, and for Bill Watts, Bill was a big man territory. Big guys got over there. And the Sheepherders were not really big guys, but they had intensity and they were believable. So everything that the Sheepherders did, you believed it. And there was a difference when a heel would walk to the ring and someone would get in their face and boo them and jeer them, and there would be no fear. When Luke and Butch came to the ring, you didn't get in their face because you genuinely feared them. And they had an air about them that just told you that, hey, we're serious about what we do and we're not all there. That was the beauty of it all.
Isn't it fascinating too, when you said, boy, when Luke and Butch went to the ring, you didn't try to get in their face. And then of course we grew up with them, guys my age, listen to this. And they looked for kids to get in their face. And it's a totally different presentation.
And I'll get to that explanation too. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, they do the big Mid-South Superdome show. The Sheepherders are going to clash with the Fantastics one more time. This time, Williams and Miller lost in a New Zealand boot camp match to the UWF Tag Champs. These Superdome shows, I don't know that we've talked a lot about, but this is really one of the first super shows in wrestling, right?
Yeah, it was a co-promotion with Jim Crockett, where brought in talent from the Crockett promotion, brought in Baba and Tiger Mask, I believe, from Japan, and just different guys from different territories. I know that Memphis was represented with some of their guys, and it was a big, it was a weekend show. You had the semifinals on Saturday and the finals on Sunday, 2-day event, big dome show, and it was quite the extravaganza. I think it was a nightmare to put together, and I think there's a reason that they only did 1 or 2 of these things.
I mean, these guys are essentially, in this era, we've already covered some of their stomping grounds so far and just their path. They're territory guys. Are they more of an attraction? I feel like some guys we would see as almost like homesteaders. They may go out here and there, but really they always wind up back home in whatever territory. But right after the UWF, they're back to Puerto Rico. Then they go back to Memphis. Then they go to New Japan, then back to Puerto Rico. They're all over the place, including even having some matches with Crockett on one of the Bash shows. These guys are legitimate attractions worldwide.
They were, and the problem is that you couldn't sustain it in a territory. There's only so much blood and guts you can get, and
Right.
they were the type of an attraction that you could tire quickly with them. Get them in, get them out.
But as far as you know, these guys really liked sort of living on the road, right?
They loved it, and they definitely loved the island, Puerto Rico, and Luke especially, and as Luke lived there for a long time afterwards, after the Bushwackers kind of went their separate ways and everything. But they did. They loved travel.
Talk to me a little bit about when you see them back with Crockett. They have some major TV time here, working with Crockett. As we mentioned, they were on a Bash show, but they did some Clash of the Champions and the old Crockett Cup stuff. Around this same time, is this when Vince starts to have an interest, or how does the interest from Vince become a thing? Because it's not like they're new to wrestling. Why now?
Well, the way that I remember the story is that the sheep herders inquired, and the sheep herders reached out and wanted to come in. So Vince, not really knowing that much about them, they're like, "Hey, they're this great tag team. Let's bring these guys in and talk to them."
The story I got in my research is that Luke checks his phone at home for voicemails. This is different. Of course, this is not when everybody could just send an email or a text or a DM, but he checks his calls at home, and he had a call from someone named Pat. Was Pat a big Bushwacker supporter?
Yeah, he was. He definitely was. He loved their style and thought that they were very unique.
I guess the reason I'm asking about them here specifically is, as far as you know, did you have some sort of creative in mind for, here's what we'd like to do with these guys? Or was it more of, hey, we're in a war and these guys are on TV for somebody else, let's get them?
Well, I'll tell you what happened is let's talk to these guys and see where they're at. And when they came in and talked to Vince, Vince fell in love with them.
Right.
And just was like, "You guys are wonderful. You want to hug them." And if you ever had the opportunity to be around either one of them, they're that kind of warm, friendly people. They're great guys. There's no other way to explain it. And Vince is looking at their faces and kind of, cockeyed like a dog does, and looks at them and says, "Oh my God." He says, "You guys would be the biggest baby faces in the world with those faces, because I just want to hug you." Now, everything that they've done in their career has been blood and guts and violence and all this other shit. And Vince is looking at him going, I love it. You guys, he got to meet Luke and Butch and talk to them and see what they were about. And they're just two Kiwis that made it and that love travel and love everything. It's like, my God, you're awesome. Got to have you. But I see you guys as huge baby faces.
And I think even during their Hall of Fame speech, I think it was Butch who explained they didn't think it would work. And I think, as the story goes, and you can poke holes in this, maybe this is just one of those tall tales. Supposedly, Butch jumps up on the table in the middle of this meeting with Vince and screams, "If you can make these faces babyface, go for it," pointing to their scarred up mugs, because they've been blood and guts wrestlers. So their forehead looks like a Rand McNally map. But Vince allegedly points out, "Hey, I did it for Hacksaw and Jake the Snake and Hulk Hogan, and those guys don't exactly look like matinee idols." And it came to be. Now the Bushwackers are going to be coming to work for Vince, and they're going to be good guys. Did you ever hear the story of one of the guys jumping up on the table?
I never heard about the table. I know that line was definitely uttered, and they put their heads together and said, if you can make these faces baby faces, go for it. Yes. Definitely. I heard that over from both sides.
Well, Vince is not into blood and guts here. He's trying to expand national. That won't translate. He's trying to market younger. He's trying to target, kids and cartoons and lunch boxes and action figures, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why we're all listening to this show right now, because it worked. So he's going to have to change the sheep herders. And the new idea is, let's call them the Bushwackers. And of course, they're going to develop a more comedic style, and they're going to involve licking each other, their opponents, fans. And they're also going to have a very distinctive march to the ring. And the vignettes begin to run about 6 weeks out. Mean Gene is on a safari and eventually comes across the Bushwackers out in the wild. A lot to unpack here. This is December of '88 when they debut. They're in the middle of their most aggressive national expansion. Of course, on the other station, Ted Turner has just bought Jim Crockett Promotions. So now Vince is battling with a billionaire. And I think they actually make their debut the day after Christmas in '88 against the Bolsheviks. Talk to me about the name change first. How and why did we land on the name Bushwacker?
God, I don't know if that was something Creative Services had, or if that's just something that came out of Vince's mouth one day. But, I think by the time that they got to me and let's do vignettes, they had the name and everything else, and were really, really high on Luke and Butch and the Bushwackers. And just explained this whole concept. I remember seeing Luke and Butch in the office when they had their initial meeting, and they were just high as a kite, positive and happy, and just like, oh my God, this ought to be a hell of a ride. So the next thing I know is, okay, now we need to do these fish out of water vignettes with these guys to introduce them and make them lovable characters. And we went to work, and the first one that was just talking about how friendly everybody in the United States is. They run into a guy on the street asking him for directions, and he gives them directions, and they both go in the opposite direction and then come back and talk about how great America is. And here's a trivia, is that the guy that was in that first vignette, giving them directions, I was actually shot right in front of 1055 Summer Street, which was our first office. And the guy was the first ever official HR person that had ever been hired by the company, Alan Frost. And then we went to town from there, man, and just did crazy shit. But I told you there's going to be the throwback to the first night that I met him. And that was, we went to the Silver Star Diner and rented a banquet room in there. And I told Vince the story about them ordering the menu. And it was like, that's great. Let's do that. And so we went into Silver Star Diner to do these vignettes and basically had them do that. Yes, I'll have this. What do you mean, sir? This side of the menu. And then the other one ordered the other side of the menu and had them eat it all. And Luke was sick as a dog that day, looking at me. Oh, mate, I can't fall in. Mate, I can't eat all this. I can't do it. I said, well, you got to do it, man. I'll have a puke bucket here for you, but I need you to at least put it in. And like a trooper, he went and he ate every bit of it, and got sicker afterwards. It all came up eventually. But I just loved working with those guys because they were just so fucking easy to work with. You would give them a concept. The licking shit, that was shit they came up with on their own. Just being unorthodox. And Vince was like, it'd be great if you guys could have a march to the ring type thing. And they would take it and they would run with it and they would make it work. Whatever you gave them, they would make it work.
There we go. I like that little break there. So the whole, the arm thing, any idea where that came from?
Their march?
Yeah.
It was a little bit of what it came from them. They did it, and they kind of came up with it. You would give them, here's the difference between what the Bushwackers did and sometimes what a talent that thinks too much will do. Is you would say, hey guys, get out there with this. We need a march. We need you to do something that people can do with you and participate with you. And the Bushwackers would take it as far out as they possibly could, which was exactly where we wanted them to go. And you only had to you bring them back a little bit, not push them forward. A lot of times talent will just, do it a little bit or do it half-assed because they're afraid of making a fool out of themselves. Once you learn you can make a fool out of yourself and have fun with it, then everything else is easy after that. But the Bushwackers went out. They went out over the top. They were an over-the-top attraction anyway. So all of that shit, those were things that here's what we'd like you to do. Here's a suggestion. We need you to do this. And they would take it and run. And that is what made them so damn successful. I still have, I'm looking in there where the hell it is. I don't know where it is right now. But there was we did a shoot in a lingerie shop, a sexy lingerie shop in Stanford. I think it's still there, where they went in and were looking for, bustier, trying on bras and shit like that. And in the shop, there was an I love you pillow, silk pillow, says I love you on it. And they took it down and go, oh, hey, brother love, hey, mate. And I still have that pillow from that shoot that they slobbered all over, so I had to buy it. But it was just natural. You could put them in any situation and they would make it their own.
I love this stuff, hearing how it all came to be. What did Vince think of these vignettes when he sees them? Is this when he sees how they are with Mean Gene and what you've put together? Does he think, hey man, we're on track. This is exactly what I was hoping for. Or did he
God damn it, Bruce, this is the best shit you've ever done. I'm going to fire you and then hire you back 2 more times.
That's the way I remember it. I don't know. No, he liked him.
Talk to us about the whole licking bit.
It just, they did it to each other. And if you go back and you watch the sheep herder stuff, they kind of did, where they rubbed each other's heads and shit like that anyway.
Yeah.
They just made it fun instead of gross. So they started licking each other. They started rubbing each other's heads and shit like that. And it became, okay, who can goof on the other more and have fun with it? And people loved to rub their heads. They loved, they'd go up and have people rub their heads and, oh, hey, oh. I mean, it was great throughout the thing. And I tell you the one, and this goes back to the first time at the Denny's when I first met him on the first night, where I became infatuated with the way that they would say, oh, you fucking douchebag. Just the way they said it. I embraced the fucking douchebag just because the way they said it. Everybody for about the next 6 months became a fucking douchebag.
How do they acclimate to the rest of the group? This is a traveling group here now that becomes a big family on the road, and they're bringing in new characters all the time. These are old territory guys who've probably worked with most of the locker room at one point or another. But they're coming in under totally different, sort of look and feel.
Well, that's the point. Yeah. They probably had worked with 90% of the locker room before.
Right.
And again, I don't know, which is a pretty hard thing to do in this day and age. I don't know of anybody that has anything bad to say about either one of them. And put on top of that, Luke was a booker for a long time.
Right.
And you'd be hard pressed to find somebody say, oh yeah, that fucking Luke Williams. Most people are like, nah, he's a different cat. But a very creative one and just a genuinely good guy.
Okay. So we mentioned they start the day after Christmas, December 26th, 1988 against the Bolsheviks. By February, they're starting a feud with the fabulous Rougeau brothers, which is kind of fun considering we've already covered that they used to work with Jacques Rougeau. And they really feature this feud a lot on WWF TV at the time, to the point that they're even a part of WrestleMania 5 and the Bushwackers are victorious. Meltzer would write of the match: the Bushwackers down the Rougeaus in 5 minutes and 10 seconds after a double stomach breaker on Raymond. Suffice to say, this is one of the worst matches in the modern history of any civilized nation. Monsoon didn't know Luke from Butch. The sheepherder strut is really over, but I can't describe in words how bad this match was. Let's just say Paul Jones versus Ivan Koloff is no longer the favorite to win worst match of the year. -4 stars. I know you totally disagree with everything Meltzer writes, so we'll table that. What'd you think of this match?
Thought it was fun. It was what it was meant to be, and that was for the Bushwackers to go out and get everything off to a great start and get people going and having fun.
I agree. It was fun. It's not for everybody. It's the let me up. It's for kids. It's blah, blah, blah. There's a famous moment from this match that's become an internet meme and a GIF that wrestling fans share all over the place, where one of the Bushwackers is getting body slammed and he does a little hog check on one of the Rougeaus. Did you see that on the monitor when it happened? And were you laughing when you see a rib on live TV like that?
I can't say I did.
You still don't know what I'm talking about right now?
I don't.
Okay. I'll send you a link.
All right.
I mean, it's pretty hilarious. I think it's Luke and Ray Rougeau. Anyway. So by now, you know that the Bushwackers used to be some pretty hardcore dudes, right? They were known for being handy with the blade. Don't take my word for it. Check out those faux heads. Well, there's one way to make sure that you reduce those nicks and cuts and scrapes and you don't accidentally gig yourself. You got to learn about Hinson Shaving. Hinson Shaving is one of my favorite sponsors. They make one of my favorite products of all time. What I like best about these folks is they're a family-owned business. But what you might be thinking to yourself is, wait, these are the aerospace parts manufacturers who made stuff for the International Space Station and the Mars rovers, but somehow now make razors? Yes, that's them. You've heard me talking about them for a while now. If you haven't tried it yet, why not? Check this out, man. These guys are so cool. What they were able to do is use these aerospace grade CNC machines to make metal razors that are just 0.0013 inches. I know what you're thinking. I don't know. How thick is that? Well, it's less thick than the thickness of a human hair. How about that? Smaller than the thickness of a human hair. What? What it means to you and me, I guess, is a secure and stable blade and a vibration-free shave. By the way, the razor has built-in channels to evacuate hair and cream, which makes clogging virtually impossible. Well, as a businessman, what I admire best about this program and this product is it's not a subscription gimmick. There's no proprietary blades. There's nothing plastic about it. There's no planned obsolescence. I'm saying all that to say, those are usually the things that give you a guaranteed income as a business, right? What they wanted to do is not make the best razor business. They wanted the best razor. And by God, they've done it. I'm telling you, when you hold this in your hand, you know, well, this thing's going to last forever. You can just feel the quality. Like, you compare this to what I was holding before with a plastic razor, there's just no comparison. I think Bobby the Brain Heenan once compared the WWF title and the big gold belt that Ric Flair was carrying as ice cream to horse manure. Of course, big gold was ice cream. Hinson Shaving is ice cream. Now, here's what I like about this. It's got the old school feel because it's a standard dual-edged blade. But remember now, these Hinson razors are 0.0013 inches. That means it gives you the old school feel, but it's using the new school tech. But my favorite part is not only is it a better shave, not only is it the best shave of my life, it's also cheaper than what I was doing. You see, once you actually own the razor itself, the blades are like $3 to $5 a year. Not $3 to $5 per blade, not $3 to $5 per pack, not $3 to $5 per month or per quarter, per year. It's time to say no to subscriptions and say yes to a razor that will last you a lifetime. Please go visit hinsonshaving.com/wrestle and pick up the razor for you. Use the code WRESTLE and you'll get 2 years worth of blades for free with your razor Just be sure to add them to your cart. That's 100 free blades when you head to HENSONSHAVING.com/wrestle and use our promo code WRESTLE. They put the teams back together again for Saturday night's main event 23. Once again, the Bushwackers were victorious. They defeat the Rougeaus twice more, first at the 89 Survivor Series and again at the 90 Rumble. The Rougeaus and Bushwackers, somebody there really loved this pairing, right?
Well, I think that they had a little bit of history together, and with the Rougeaus, from working up in Montreal and the father and everything else. So there was some history there, but they had pretty good chemistry. Everybody knew their role too. The Rougeaus were getting over as heels, and their role was to get the Bushwackers over, and they did it. So it was 4 guys that enjoyed working with each other and went out and played their role every single night.
In the midst of all these low rated Meltzer matches, something weird starts to happen as we see on TV. The Bushwackers get mega over with kids. If they come out to the ring, every little pair of spaghetti arms in the crowd is doing this goofy Bushwacker walk as they're making their way down. I mean, the fans are super, super into it. When did you know, not only did Vince love it, but this was going to be a major hit with kids?
Well, I think Vince kind of saw it right away. When Vince looked at him, he just thought that the combination, the natural chemistry that Luke and Butch had with each other, the way that they genuinely were as human beings, you take that and you can get that on camera, it's going to be a big hit with everybody. And kids loved them. Everybody loved. How could you not love them?
Right.
They were friendly. They were just so lovable. You always wanted to hug them. No matter what. They were huggable. They were lovable. And when the kids felt completely unintimidated by them, exactly the opposite of the way that they would have been in the Mid-South, where kids ran from them at the sheer appearance of them. Here, kids are flocking to them, wanting to rub their head and get licked. It's what the fuck? It's crazy. They were 2 guys that would ingratiate themselves to the audience and didn't alienate one person in the audience.
It is pretty remarkable because, like, I remember as a kid, I was not really a Bushwacker fan, but friend of the show, Cassio Kid, whenever we talk about all-time great tag teams, we don't say, hey, who are the best tag teams ever, but who are your favorites? And if the Bushwackers aren't number 1, they're one of the first 2 or 3 teams to be mentioned. And I think if you grew up in that era, I mean, they've got to be one of your favorites. And by the way, I think and maybe you correct me on this, part of the magic of the Bushwackers was that great theme song that I think Jim Johnston put together, right?
Yeah, they had great music, and it was just something, as soon as that first lick hit in the music, that people knew who was coming, and they started getting with it right away. The arms went up in the air, and they started marching in there right where they were standing, and everybody was into it. So it was a shitload of fun with the Bushwackers, everything they did.
By 1990, they're feuding with the newly established team Rhythm and Blues, which is of course Honky Tonk Man and Greg the Hammer Valentine. And the Bushwackers' WrestleMania 6 appearance comes at the expense of Rhythm and Blues as they show up during a segment attacking Honky Tonk Man and Valentine. This is kind of fun little let me up segment of WrestleMania, right?
The classic line, and this is a shout out to someone, I won't mention their name, I'll just see if they listen and hear this, is Gorilla Monsoon when Greg Valentine was singing. He says, if they were to hang Greg Valentine for being a great singer, they'd be hanging an innocent man. And then the horrible way that Honky Tonk just looks, and you've got Luke and Butch down there as concession guys throwing concessions out. And it's like, hey, wait a minute. What are you two concessionaires doing? Well, you're not concessionaires at all. You're Bushwacker Luke and you're Bushwacker Butch. You're the Bushwackers. And then Bushwackers slide in the ring and tear everything up. My God, get the exposure out there without having to have a match, and get the Honky Tonk Man and Rhythm and Blues out there to sing a song. Everybody wins. I got my long sideburns and my hair slicked back. Actually, that was the other song. But you know what I mean. Everybody loves to hear me sing.
And your boy,
see me dance.
And your best friend personally, DDP, he was there too, huh?
He was there driving a pink Cadillac with Peggy Sue.
Pretty remarkable. Later on, they're going to be used to help establish newcomers, the Orient Express, which is your old pal Pat Tanaka, who's part of that team. And they even have a feud that goes through the rest of 90 until, I guess, Survivor Series 90. And there we would see the Bushwackers teaming up with Volkov and Tito Santana to form the Alliance. And they're going to take on Sergeant Slaughter, Boris Zukov, and the Orient Express, known as the Mercenaries. And this is, of course, what Sarge is trying to build up to be a serious threat to Mania, or for Hogan at Mania, rather. Bushwackers here, very quickly, we decide they're not going to necessarily be our serious tag team champion types. They're here to entertain the kids and send everybody home happy, right?
They never were intended for that. They were intended to entertain people and to get people to smile and have fun. And you need that as part of an overall presentation. And Bushwackers fit that role perfectly.
The Bushwackers worked much of early 91 against either Demolition or the Nasty Boys on the house show circuit, but they don't find themselves in a tag match at the 91 Royal Rumble, but they did work the Rumble match itself. Butch comes in at number 8 and lasts about 10 minutes. But Luke sets a record that night. He comes in the ring at 50 minutes and 34 seconds. He's eliminated in 50 minutes and 38 seconds by Earthquake. Yes, this is the quickest Rumble elimination in history at that point, a record that wouldn't be broken until Santino gets tossed over a few decades later. But that is a fun spot, is it not?
Oh, absolutely. And that was one that Pat and I laughed about forever. He goes, and what if the fucking Bushwacker, he marching right through and they got the ping and he just marching right out at a pace. And it was perfect. And Luke getting it. Now, here's another thing. There have been talent in the past like, oh, I'm only lasting 90 seconds in the Rumble, or I only got 3 minutes and this guy got me out. I mean, really? I don't know. Butch and Luke here, and Luke is like, it's fucking great, mate. And Butch is like, yeah, but I got to work 10 minutes earlier in the fucking match. He goes, no, I'll do it. But they got it. And instead of pouting and doing it like, oh, woe is me, they did it exactly as you would expect a Bushwacker to take it. He marches in the ring, gets thrown out over the top. Whoa, hey, I'll go to the back now. And he goes to the back, not missing a beat. That's what a Bushwacker would do.
The third WrestleMania.
Bushwackers.
I can tell you're into the Bushwackers. Our third WrestleMania for the guys is March 24th, 1991 at the LA the LA Sports Arena. It's not a match, and this year it's not even an in-ring segment, but it is pretty funny. We see a pre-taped debate on instant replay with George Steinbrenner and Paul McGuire, narrated by Vince McMahon. The debate was inspired by Randy Savage costing the Ultimate Warrior the world title back at the Royal Rumble. And during the segment, the Bushwackers are going to be portrayed as referees that are tied up in the video film while trying to make a call. What'd you think of this?
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was a different way. This was during the whole, the instant replay debates and everything. We got outsiders to work with us, and Steinbrenner was always fucking awesome. But I thought it was great exposure for him, and it kind of was a nice payoff to everything that we had built up to that point, with the whole instant replay and different things that were going on in the world at the time.
Really fun, to see that they're actually headlining shows in New Zealand. And I guess this is something that, we've done forever in pro wrestling. Whenever you go to someone's hometown or home country, you try to feature them, hope that they're a draw. And believe it or not, it happened with the Bushwackers. You guys go to New Zealand and the Bushwackers are on top, getting wins over the Nasty Boys. That's a pretty cool deal. Had to make the guys feel good, right? To be in their home spot doing that.
Oh, absolutely. And they were big names. They were big deals. They did all the promotion. It's their coming home. So they had been big stars in New Zealand before they took off on their trek to go to America and to conquer the world. So the New Zealanders, and it was one of their own making it big. And they were huge stars in the U.S. They were huge stars on the card. So it made perfect sense for them to headline in New Zealand.
They do get a tag shot on the April 27th edition of Saturday Night's Main Event. It's the 29th Saturday Night's Main Event. It was taped on April 15th in Omaha, Nebraska, and their match is against the Nasty Boys, but of course they're defeated. I do want to mention they're still using the double gutbuster as their finish, but around this time they start using a pretty hilarious finisher that I'd never seen before, the battering ram. And as a finishing move, it's like the peak of comedy, I guess. Butch grabs a headlock on Luke and rams his head into the opponent. Somehow it paralyzes the opponent and the Bushwackers get the win. This battering ram shit, this is Three Stooges 101, is it not?
God damn. Thank you.
What?
Finally. Three Stooges. When you go back and you look at the Bushwackers and you look at a lot of their antics.
Yeah.
So much of it came from the Stooges' interactions with people.
Why'd you yell goddamn?
Well, I figured that you would have come up with Three Stooges a long time ago before this, but that's exactly where a lot of it came from. A lot of the inspiration of the, you look at the Three Stooges with three guys that really loved each other, that got into hijinks and different things that just played so well that a lot of that just interaction with the Bushwackers came from that, including the battering ram.
You could have said Three Stooges was the inspiration at any point during the show. You didn't have to wait
I was waiting for you to get it. I was going to come back and say it at the end and go, ha, I got you. Ha.
May 28th in Tucson, they're doing some Superstars tapings. It's a televised 6-man tag match. And we see the Bushwackers team up with Tugboat to take on Earthquake and the Nasty Boys. But it winds up being a pretty memorable angle as Tugboat turns on his partners after a few minutes of action and joins Earthquake in attacking the Bushwackers. So after the heel, Tugboat changes his name to Typhoon, and together they become known as the Natural Disasters, and they start feuding with the Bushwackers. We haven't spent a lot of time talking about this moment, but what's the thinking with turning Tugboat heel? He's not Chic Tugboat like we've speculated before. Now he's Typhoon.
Well, I wasn't there during this time, but it was natural, I think, for Tugboat and two big guys from Earthquake, and you take them and you take another Natural Disaster and give them Typhoon. I thought it worked really well together.
They're easily defeated by the Natural Disasters at SummerSlam 91. They go 6 minutes and 27 seconds. Meltzer gives it 3/4 of a star. After the bout though, the Natural Disasters make their way towards the injured Andre on the floor until LOD comes to make the save. What did Andre think of the Bushwackers? Feels like he would have been big friends with these guys.
Loved them. Yeah, absolutely loved them. Again, it was two guys or three guys, but one act, and that had gone along similar paths in traveling all over the world and being an attraction all over the world. They crossed paths all over the world and had become friends. And it was the fact that neither one of them were American, so to speak. They were international stars that they could relate to each other. And as far as everything I knew, Andre loved them and vice versa.
Let's talk about what's next here. They're going to be working with the Beverly Brothers, or as the Bushwackers called them during their insert promos, the Beverly Sisters. The two teams first clash at the 91 Survivor Series when they're on opposite sides of a 4-on-4 match. And the genius is the Beverly Brothers manager. He keeps interfering in their matches. So the Bushwackers bring in a manager of their own, sort of even out the odds. And this is where we first meet Jameson. Talk to me about Jameson. We've spent very little time talking about him. I think maybe once in 2016 we touched on him. How in the world does Jameson come to be?
Well, Jameson was an actor in one of those murder mystery dinner theater things that Vince had been to, and seen Jameson in the character Jameson in this murder mystery, and was absolutely fascinated by him. Really liked the way that he had portrayed himself in this murder mystery. Brought him in to meet with me, and then we started laughing because we had the Bobby Heenan show coming up. And that's where Bobby Heenan was going to do his own talk show and kind of do a news of the world, news of the weird type show with Bobby. Bobby needed a sidekick, and we started laughing, saying, what if Jameson was that sidekick? So we have Jameson come in gimmick, complete Jameson gimmick, to actually meet with Bobby Heenan and stay in gimmick the entire time. And Jameson was in gimmick through the entire thing. And we thanked him and excused him, and Jameson left, and Bobby looked at Vince and I was like, what the fuck was that? I was like, that's your new co-host. And Bobby started laughing, and then he got it at that point. But at first he thought, okay, what are you guys doing? Fuck you. What are you doing with me? And Jameson did the Bobby Heenan show for a while, and the Bobby Heenan show was discontinued. I think that it was just something that Vince thought would be a natural pairing with the Bushwackers and Jameson. Didn't surprise me when I saw it.
Of course, this doesn't really help. Even with Jameson, the Beverly Brothers beat the Bushwackers at the 92 Royal Rumble. The Bushwackers do gain a small measure of revenge on the Beverly Brothers when they defeat the team in a dark match at WrestleMania 8. And Luke and Butch would continue their feud with the Beverlys throughout the spring and summer of 92, generally coming out on the winning side of that whenever they're on house shows. We haven't spent a ton of time talking about the Beverly Brothers here. These guys feel like they would have been Vince's style presentation all day. Mike Enos and Wayne Bloom. Wayne Bloom in particular, I thought would be a Vince guy. Why don't you think they had more success than they wound up having?
I don't know. I don't know if it was just timing or what it was, or one of those things. I know that both guys, tremendous athlete and athletes. Wayne Bloom, one of the strongest guys ever in the business. I mean, Wayne was deceptively strong and had like deadlift records and just all kinds of shit. But both guys were Minnesota guys from, I don't know if they went to Robbinsdale High or not, but They were definitely Minnesota guys, and kind of in that clique, both tough kids and super, super, super nice. Just kind of wanting it, but I don't know that there were times when guys just go, okay, well, it's up to the office to get me over. And there's other guys that go, I'll do whatever the fuck it takes, and I'm going to get over regardless of anybody. And I think that, I don't know, because I didn't get to work with them that much, but I would say that they were probably the former and that they were waiting for the office to get them over. But I couldn't really tell you.
Let's talk about what's next here. The 92 SummerSlam show, or I guess the SummerSlam Spectacular, is the show that precedes the pay-per-view in the UK. And this is where the Bushwackers get a title shot against then champs Money Inc. But in the match, which aired on the USA Network, they fall short. IRS pins Butch. Of course, SummerSlam is next. They're going to team up with Jim Duggan on the pre-show. They're going to defeat the Mountie and the Nasty Boys. They're slated to team with the Natural Disasters against Money Inc. and the Beverly Brothers at the 92 Survivor Series. But on the November 7th edition of Superstars, they agree to let Jimmy Hart have the Nasty Boys take their place after the duo turns on their manager. So the Bushwackers conclude the year here by resuming their long running feud with the Beverly Brothers on house shows. And sometimes they'll even team with Tiger Jackson against Bo, Blake, and Little Mickey Moses in 6-man matches. Tell me what the fuck we need to know about Tiger Jackson and Little Mickey Moses.
Tiger Jackson, arguably by the modern era, one of the greatest little people that was working at the time. He was Dink and from Montreal, hell of a talent. The other one, I have no idea. I think he was just the guy that Tiger was working with at the time. It was like, well, you got a little fella to work with? All right, let's bring him in. So, but Tiger was a hell of a talent. Tiger was entertaining as hell.
92 ends with the Bushwackers winning the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Award Worst Tag Team.
Oh, fuck.
I don't think that's necessarily fair. These guys weren't meant to have 5-star matches. They're here to entertain kids, right?
And they did.
Yeah.
And if you want to say most over tag team, they probably would have won that too.
Well, The Bushwackers opened 93 with another opportunity against the tag champs, Money Inc. This time they're defeated. This, of course, is a taping on January 25th for Superstars. Bruce just took a bump. Bruce, are you okay?
Damn, I fucking about did too.
Starting in February, they're working with a new tag team showing up here to the territory called the Head Shrinkers. That's Fatu and Samu. But of course, the Bushwackers are here to make them look good. They've got a huge winless streak here. And they are going to start working more comedy matches, with, the little guys. At this point, do you feel like the run is coming to an end?
You know, I think that it was time to give it a rest. Yes, I do. I think that, you know, they could ease up a little bit here. Yes.
Time for a new, a fresh paint of coat, maybe.
Fresh paint of coat is right.
March 22nd, 93, we see the Bushwackers on Monday Night Raw. This time they defeat Damian Demento and the Repo Man. And this would be Luke and Butch's first Raw appearance, but it is the final WWF appearance for the Repo Man. We haven't spent a ton of time talking about those two characters, and boy, are they characters. Talk to me a little bit about the Repo Man. Of course, he played a Russian for Crockett. He's part of Demolition here as Smash, but then when Demolition, it's time to sort of go our separate ways. The creative is you're a Repo Man.
Yeah. Everybody hates the Repo Man. Well, Barry Darsow, got his first big break as a Russian, actually, with Bill Watts, and in Watts' territory with Nikolai Volkov.
Right.
The Darsow had come in and was Crusher Darsow. Then he became Crusher Khrushchev when Nikolai Volkov turned him on to the other side. But Barry was a big strapping kid from Minnesota, had a shitload of potential. And I think that the best run that he had was with Watts and with Crockett. And then later on, he was part of Demolition Smash. So he had a hell of a run. And wanted to do something a little different. And they came up with, who do you hate? You hate that guy that when you miss a payment, they come and they repossess your car, or they repossess whatever it is that you bought, your furniture that you bought on credit that you just can't pay for anymore. And he would come in and sneak in the middle of the night, and he'd repo it. Hence the Repo Man. You got to admit, it's better than being the fucking golf caddy or whatever the hell he was.
I'm not arguing that, but you did create golf caddies too.
Well, not like that, whatever the hell he was.
Chat me up about Damian Demento. This is a strange cat.
Oh. Damian Demento. So Damian worked as another talent.
Oh, another gimmick name?
Yeah. What was his other name?
Mondo Clean.
Mondo Clean. So I had seen Mondo Clean in the Independents. I'd been at a show in Jersey or something where he was on, and I thought, wow, he was the only guy that got a reaction the whole night and had a very interesting look and interesting style. So we brought Damian in and thought, shit, Vince loved the look and thought, well, this can be something interesting. We changed the name to Damian Demento, which he liked, allegedly at the time, but it just was, I think it was just about a half speed off.
When you saw him on the indie show, did he have the crazy haircut and facial hair just like he does as Damian Demento?
I mean, basically it was Damian Demento. I mean, it was the same look, same everything.
He had the same like outfit that he wore to the ring and all that.
Yes, everything was, yes.
So y'all didn't make that for him. He brought it with him.
Yeah. We didn't change up much of anything.
I'm fascinated with like the Bushwackers had a similar look to the Sheep Herders, and Damian Demento had a similar look to Mondo Clean. But in both cases, we changed the name. One comes in 88. I think one comes in 93. When do you remember there being a real conversation of, okay, I got to own the trademarks for all these guys. If I'm going to have them on my TV, I'm not going to build brand value and equity that they can then take with them. I'm using my TV. I'm using my resources. I'm going to own this IP. When was there a paradigm shift with the way Vince approached that? Would that have been 87 or before?
Probably before that. And again, I think everything is case by case basis.
Right. The other thing I wanted to ask here, in August of 93 here, the Bushwackers make a quick trip to Puerto Rico to appear at the 20th anniversary show for WWC. That's August 8th, actually. And they get a win over Mr. Hughes and the Warlord. But this happens while they're still under contract to Vince. Is this something that maybe Cologne reaches out to Vince and asks for a favor, or the guys just really want to do it? How would that have happened where they make an appearance on another show like that?
I could see Carlos reaching out, and/or Luke going to Vince and saying, "Hey, I'd really like to do this with Carlos."
When they come back to the United States, now they're working with a new tag team, the Quebecers. This is Jacques Rougeau and of course your man, the Pirate. This happens on August 23rd, 1993 on All American Wrestling. And in the fall of 93, they transition to a new feud with a new team. This time they're facing Well Done. Tell me about Well Done.
Well, it was Timothy Well and Stephen Dunn. They were well done.
Gentlemen, if you didn't already know, it's tax season here in the United States, and you know what that means. It means that Manscaped is here to make sure your paperwork is done and your boys downstairs are having fun. Make sure you spend your tax return money on the important things this year, like family, friends, and, well, ball deodorant. Join the 8 million men who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code STW. What better way to invest your tax return than into yourself? Manscaped has the full package from head to toe to make sure you get your money's worth this April. The Performance Package 4.0 is the ultimate bundle you need to reinvent yourself and your confidence. The Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer is the star of the show, offering a precise shave on your wildest hedges. Equipped with an LED light, you can navigate in and out of those difficult areas with ease. Did we mention it's waterproof as well? By the way, I should mention the Performance Package 4.0 now includes the brand new Weed Whacker 2.0. That's your ear and nose hair trimmer. This bad boy has been totally revamped with a new and improved blade and motor. And dare I say, it's the best ear and nose hair trimmer ever. Of course, it's cordless, it's rechargeable. And of course, you know it comes with skin-safe technology, making sure that you don't have any nicks, snags, or tugs. By the way, after you get rid of your nose hair gimmicks, let's get rid of that foul ball smell with the Crop Preserver and the Crop Reviver. That's right, the Preserver is your anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer, and the Reviver is a spray-on toner. Keep your boys from sticking to your leg and leave them feeling brand new. We should also mention they can now take care of your beards too. That's right, Manscaped can handle the whole package thanks to their brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. It's the head honcho. You got 9+ products, plus all your wet goods, everything you need to craft your signature look. But here's something that's important I want to share. The start of spring also marks the start of Testicular Cancer Awareness Month here in April, and Manscaped has partnered with the Testicular Cancer Society to bring awareness to testicular cancer, men's health, and early cancer detection. Bravo, Manscaped. Hey, let's support them and let's take care of ourselves. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code STW at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code STW at manscaped.com. Don't just get your money back this year. Get your swagger back with Manscaped. And now, let's get back to the Bushwackers. Come on, man.
What?
You got to give me
took the two last names and well and done.
You felt good about
well done.
And you felt good about that.
Oh, I feel great about it.
What's your favorite well done match?
Bushwackers.
There's just some stuff that's not always going to be a hit, right? Some stuff's going to hit and some stuff ain't.
This is true.
If you haven't been familiar with Well Done, do me a favor. Pull up your Google machine, type in Well Done, WELL space DUNN, and just click images. You'll get a look at these guys. How would you describe their gear to someone who'd never seen it before?
Well done.
Thanks for all the help, Bruce. It's really fun doing the show all by myself. November of 93, we're in a sold out Boston Garden, and they're going to help Doink the Clown in the Clown's feud with Bam Bam Bigelow. Well, the Bushwackers, along with Mo and Mabel, all appear at Survivor Series 93 wearing the trademark green wig and face paint associated with Doink the Clown. And they defeat Bigelow, Bastion Booger, and the Head Shrinkers. I guess if Dave,
God damn.
you guys didn't want to ever come back to this town ever again, hated everyone in the crowd. This gets a dud rating. It wins the,
yeah, probably. Good Lord. How in the fuck did that happen?
this feels like you guys drew just names out of a hat in the back. Let's recap. Bushwackers teaming with Men on a Mission against Bigelow, Bastion Booger, and the Head Shrinkers. What the fuck?
Poor Head Shrinkers and Bam Bam.
I know, right?
Well, I'll throw the Bushwackers in there too. Poor guy. Yeah. Oh, that's horrible.
Let's talk about the highlight of the match. Booger has Butch pinned, but he sees a banana on the mat and got off Butch to go for it. And also one of the Samoans slipped on a banana peel in this match, like Mario Kart. We're doubling down on the silly nonsense here.
Well, goddamn, everybody would talk about slipping on a banana peel, but no one had ever actually seen it happen. So
Jesus Christ.
Might as well see it happen. Hey, true story. In TNA, one time when Russo put in a script and so-and-so slips on a banana peel,
Yeah.
props guy got a bunch of bananas and asked, where do you want the banana peels? Yeah, think about that one.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. I'll tell you the other half of that story after we go off the air. True story, though.
March of 94, the Bushwackers start feuding with the Smoky Mountain Tag Team Champions, the Heavenly Bodies. Of course, it's the Gigolo, Jimmy Del Rey, and some guy named Tom Prichard. The Bushwackers were undefeated against the Bodies until WrestleMania 10, where they lost a dark match. Let's talk about the Heavenly Bodies. They've been working for Cornette down in Smoky Mountain. Cornette now has a great working relationship with the WWF. He's on camera being a manager for Yokozuna and doing a lot of heavy lifting there. Jimmy Del Rey, somebody we haven't spent a lot of time talking about, lots of rumor and innuendo around him. What can you tell us about the Gigolo?
Well, you know, Jimmy was just part of the team. He had worked as Jimmy Backlund in Florida before that. And when Cornette started his Smoky Mountain Wrestling, teamed Tom and Jimmy together to recreate one of his favorite teams as a kid, the Heavenly Bodies. And Jimmy came through. Jimmy was a talented worker, man, and could do an awful lot. And I think I don't know that Tom and Jimmy were the best of friends and hung out and did everything together outside of the ring, but I think that they made a hell of a team in the ring.
In April, they start a series of tag matches with the now tag champ Quebecers. Unlike the previous year, this time they're winless against Rougeau and Roulette. In the summer of 94, they reverse fortunes and they're undefeated against a preliminary tag team put together called the Executioners, Dwayne Gill and Barry Hardy. And they finished the year defeating Well Done in numerous house show encounters because, well done is, well, done. Dwayne Gill, we're familiar with. Tell us about Barry Hardy.
Barry Hardy was Dwayne's partner, and they went around and they did a lot of independents in the Northeast area. Fucking terrific guys that they would do different gimmicks. I think that they did the Ninja Turtles, as a matter of fact, in some of the independents that they worked when the Ninja Turtles were hot. And
you even let them try that once at a WWF show, right? And
yes,
when footage of that got out a few years ago, people went nuts, but it was Dwayne and Barry.
Yes, it was. And again, the thing about Dwayne and Barry both is they were old school in that you say, hey, guys, I need you on such and such a date. You could be 3 months out. You didn't have to think about it because they would show up that date and they would be there. They were dependable and good hands, really good hands. And unfortunately had kind of been painted with that brush of enhancement talent that kind of kept them in that role, but tremendous guys.
Let's keep it going here and talk about exactly where we are. We're 5 years into our run with the Bushwackers in the company. As we said, they started the day after Christmas in 88. Here we are now at the end of 93. Would you have guessed when they came in with this, that they would have that type of staying power? Because a lot of guys came and went in those 5 years.
Believe it or not, I did, because I hadn't really, maybe before that, I wouldn't have called it, thinking of them coming in as heels, but with the babyface thing and keeping them kind of in the middle of the road with the strong babyface stuff, audiences loved them. Their merchandise sold, and they were attainable, I guess is the best way to describe them in a lot of respects. But I didn't know, but I thought, shit, I could see this going a lot longer than a heel run.
Well, let's talk about how prominently they're featured, and specifically with PR things. I mean, you want to talk about a vote of confidence? Check this out. The WWF superstars were on hand for the White House Easter egg roll back in 1994. Doink and Dink attended along with the Bushwackers. And of course it's funny, but they tried to have fun with the idea that Butch was going to try to eat the White House cat. And there's a famous photo out in front of the White House, believe it or not, with Linda McMahon, Shane McMahon, and the Bushwackers in full character, like the tank tops, the camo, the hat that's all chewed up. My goodness, of all the people to take, why in the world? I guess maybe just because it is kid related, right?
Because you knew that people would be talking about them, and they were, without a doubt, just characters. And that's not Linda McMahon in that picture.
Okay. Well, tell us who it is.
It's one of the, marketing people. I don't remember her name. That's not Linda. Just saying.
Thanks for participating. Appreciate it.
I'm giving you all this information, but they were, the Bushwackers were somebody, again, that when you go out in public and people are going to go, who the fuck is that? And then they want to go get near them and say, hey, what do you do? And if they don't know, and then I want to see those guys. I want to see those guys in action. They were fun.
It feels like they're odd choices for brand ambassadors on the one hand, but on the other hand, if you're targeting kids, it might be perfect for it, right?
Well, when you talk about the World Wrestling Federation at the time, they were perfect. They were international stars. They were popular. They stood out in a crowd, and for the most part, audiences loved them. So they could adapt pretty much to any situation. You could put them in, which we did. You could put them in a tuxedo and they could go to the governor's ball and things like that and fit in just as well and still be the Bushwackers.
In 1994, they even appear on an episode of the sitcom Family Matters on ABC. They're going to wrestle against Carl Winslow and Steve Urkel, who were forced to fill in for and wrestle as the Psycho Twins. This is a big deal. In that era, ABC was putting a lot of juice in their Friday night programming. Family Matters was one of their mainstays. And so when you can have some sort of crossover appearance with one of your talent, that's a big deal. And the Bushwackers get the nod. Is that something that they would have been recruited for, or were you guys reaching out to look for these type opportunities?
It's both. And, a lot of times someone may come in like Boy Meets World back in the day. They went out and, they wanted Vader for that and got that for Vader. They wanted me to come in and do something with them, and they reached out and we did it. In this instance, it's the same thing. So I'm sure that it was a combination of both. Hey, is there anything out there? And looking at what talent that we have that's going to stand out big time. And definitely Family Matters wasn't Law and Order, and the Bushwackers fit that perfectly.
The WWF is entering a new generation era in 95, and we're starting to push that, hey, we've got the new younger stars. We don't have the Nacho Man and the Huckster. And the Bushwackers are still one of those legacy acts. They're still popular with the fan base, but this is not going to be their best year for the company. They're still over, and they've got a very successful run on the house show circuit against the Heavenly Bodies. They're in the 95 Royal Rumble. Of course, they're separate participants there. Luke lasts about 12 seconds this time. Both are still eliminated by Shawn Michaels. They wrestle throughout the spring, usually with the Bodies, and well done. But their appearances are cut back significantly in the first half of the year, especially compared to years prior. But the second half of the year, they barely wrestle at all for the company, losing to tag champs Owen Hart and Yokozuna and the newly arrived Blue Twins. But this is starting to feel like the beginning of the end. They come back in March of 96 after a 6-month hiatus to participate in a tournament to crown new tag champs. The Bushwackers were beaten in the first round by the eventual winners, the Body Donnas. And then when they returned in 96, they displayed traditional Australian stereotypes, including being accompanied to the ring by a giant kangaroo mascot. What the fuck, Bruce? Who booked this shit?
Well, what the fuck do you want her to be accompanied to the ring by? A dingo?
Well, they didn't need it before, right?
Well, yeah, but after a while, man, the kangaroos want to get into the act. And from down under, then everybody loves kangaroos. They're good boxers.
Give me some insight about what's really going on here with the Bushwackers appearing less and less, taking a 6-month hiatus. And when they do come back, they have a fresh paint of coat.
Well, I think, it was more along the lines of everything, every act really needs to sit on the shelf for a while sometimes. And it was an attempt to originally kind of put them on the shelf for a little bit, bring them back after a while, and fresh coat of paint, maybe add something new to it. And if you're looking at merchandising, cute little cuddly kangaroo makes an awful lot of sense.
We can sell some stuffed animals, right?
Why not? So, that was kind of the thinking behind it, but also the audience was changing, and it was, I don't think that they wanted the fun-loving, cute, cuddly kangaroo or Bushwhackers anymore.
On September 14th, the Bushwackers make their last appearance while under contract, defeating Justin Bradshaw and Uncle Zebediah at a house show. Of course, that's JBL and Dutch Mantell these days. After leaving the company, the team made special appearances in the indie circuit, including a return to Puerto Rico for the 24th anniversary show. They're billed as the Sheep Herders here and take on the old rivals Invaders 1 and 2, or even on Terry Funk's WrestleFest show in Amarillo in 97. They lose to their old rivals, Mark and Chris Youngblood. In 98, they even make a couple of appearances in ECW under the names Luke and Butch Dudley as the cousins of the Dudley brothers. Infamously, they were a part of that Heroes of Wrestling pay-per-view, that terrible show in 99. But I guess one of their big last major appearances was WrestleMania 17, the Gimmick Battle Royal. What was the relationship like? Is it just natural and understood? Hey guys, we're going in a new direction. Were they ready to wind down? Tell me about how their run came to an end and how they apparently stayed in good graces to get a big spot at WrestleMania 17.
Well, I think of anybody, the Bushwackers who had been all over the world and worked territories for so much, they realized it, they knew it, and they're professional enough to say, yes, okay. I mean, it's our run. We had a hell of a run that was probably 5 or 6 times longer than they anticipated in the beginning, or that they had ever had anywhere else. So they looked at it as businessmen do, that, okay, we're finishing up here and we'll go on to different frontiers and evolve from this. So they were great. They understood, they're professional, and they're businessmen.
Of course, they go in the Hall of Fame. It's announced February 23rd, 2015. The Bushwackers are Hall of Famers. They actually go in on March 28th. During their speech, they acknowledge Killer Kowalski, Andre, Peter Maivia, and it was kind of a fun little deal. And it was weird to see because it doesn't feel like we usually see guys who have a harder time getting around on stage at the Hall of Fame. I think maybe folks just don't want that represented on a WWE Hall of Fame stage or whatever. I don't have any inside information, But even with the Walkers, it was so cool to see the Bushwackers one last time at a WWE event. And they're certainly Hall of Fame worthy, given the impression they left on so many kids from 83 or 88 to 93, right?
Absolutely. But not only, you know, the kids in the audience, but the talent in the locker room and all the talent that had kind of come through there, because Luke and Butch pretty much touched so much of that talent and were always guys that would offer words of encouragement and words of advice and how to do this, how to do that. Luke was a hell of a booker and a great mind for the business and had done an awful lot. San Antonio, Puerto Rico, and different places where he was successful and really had done a good job with that and had an eye for talent. But they also loved their independence. Butch had gone back to New Zealand and was happy with that. Butch, I think, was a few years older than Luke, but just the warmth from the talent and the audience overall. Here are two guys that could walk in to a locker room pretty much anywhere, be known and be respected and held in very high regard, no matter where the hell they were.
Let's talk about, just take a time out here for a minute. The Bushwackers are really proof that even if a gimmick is silly and stupid and maybe isn't what you think your character is, if you really commit to it and give it your all, you can get it over. Because you take a look at when these guys came in and they were blood and guts murderers across the world. And now they're going to be comedy acts and be silly and licking kids. And it's a totally different approach. And you for a long time have taken a lot of shit about saying the Red Rooster could have gotten over. Terry Taylor just half-assed it and wouldn't commit to it. He didn't like it. He thought it was a punishment. But I think this is one of those examples where if you do commit, it can work.
Well, yeah, and I take exception to silly and stupid because it was a fun character and it was something that people could relate to. And depending upon how you want to look at it, you want to look at it as silly and stupid. Great. It wasn't silly and stupid. It was something that drew an awful lot of money, made them a lot of money, and was good for the company, and took two guys that were pigeonholed in one character of blood and guts that you couldn't sell on an international level to the point that the Bushwackers were able to be sold on an international level. And I always remember Luke and Butch, but Luke especially. Luke would always point to, and he would pull it up. Last time I saw him, he actually pulled it up online on his phone and would point to when they were on the magazine cover of the WWE magazine, and then when they were this merchandise program where they were on the cover of. And I remember they would always go, Bruce, this was you. This was you. You did this for us. And I'd always correct them and say, no, Luke, you did that for you. You guys did that. That's nothing, I did it. Yes, I did all that shit with you guys, but I couldn't have done it without you. You guys did the work. You guys brought the characters to life. You guys made everyone love you. You guys are the ones that sold it and made it all happen. Do things all day long, but it's the talent that they either make it or they break it. And the Bushwackers are perfect examples of talent that if you work hard enough and you put your heart and soul into it, that will make it. And just every single time, and it's become a joke with me. And Luke is as sincere as he can be, and just so grateful, and I love him for it. But it was him. It was him and Butch. They embraced that gimmick. They embraced this opportunity and made the most out of it. To where, as you said, would people be surprised if they were gone after 2 years in the old gimmick? I don't think anybody would have been surprised at that. But they lasted and outlasted so many other teams and other people, and still to this day are revered for being the Bushwackers.
What do you think their legacy will be?
Whoa, hey. I think that they are going to go down, as that fun badass tag team that always epitomized, in one word, fun. Because whenever they went out, they didn't take themselves too seriously, and they always brought the audience into everything that they did. And that was a unique art that they had down pat.
We got tons of questions about the Bushwackers. So many of our listeners grew up with these guys. There's no way we'll get to them all. Let's try to do a few here. Chief Small PP. This is weird. Chief Small PP, whatever. Was the licking of kids discussed with Vince beforehand for safety reasons, or was that go out and have a good time and do what you like kind of thing?
Different time, different place, folks. And that was something that just kind of evolved as the characters grew and they kind of grew into each other. And it was something that Luke and Butch did to each other. And then it just kind of evolved from there.
Big Chop Man says, was it ever considered to have them revert to the sheep herder style of their character at any point? I do think that's worth mentioning.
No, it wasn't. Yeah. I think that the one thing about the sheep herder character was just that everyone identified with it was blood and guts.
Right.
And that wasn't something that we wanted to revisit. However, it's a good point, but I don't think it was ever brought up in a serious manner. It may have been brought up, hey, what if they went back to being the style of the sheep herders, or even went back to the sheep herder name? And that was not anything that was ever considered seriously.
GJ Refill had a great observation. He says, on the episode of Primetime Wrestling in 1989 titled Survivor Series Showdown, he said the Bushwackers would be whacking and licking. Gorilla liked having some interesting commentary where if you were really paying attention, you get a chuckle, right?
Well, they did like to whack and lick.
Sure.
Who doesn't?
Lord knows we do.
There you go. I go back. The other thing about the Bushwackers that they did that was kind of a gross thing, but again, you can either do it and embrace it or not. And that was, they would always have them eat sardines and be real gross with the sardines and shit. So on an episode of the Brother Love show, Vince has this idea, oh, goddamn, we got to get them on Brother Love, and they're eating the sardines. And then they decide to feed sardines to Brother Love. And I knew what was coming. And of course, Luke and Butch, being who they are as human beings, like, hey, mate, they want us to get this all over you and really feed you and do you good. I said, yes, I do. And same thing. I was like, let's go for it. Just go for it. Get it up my nose, get them in my ear, get them in my hair, get them down my shirt. I said, fucking, go for it. And we had a lot of fun with it. But again, I got the last laugh when I came back because everybody's gathered around the gorilla position there at the monitors watching this. Andre was there, Vince was there, Pat, and just I think Bobby was there, but everybody's crowded around. We're gonna get Bruce, right? And so I came back, put my arms out like, hey guys, and then I put my head down, and I had really long hair there, and I'd taken it out, and I just start shaking like a dog. And sardines go everywhere. And you never saw people move so fast. They went from ha 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 to God damn it, and getting the hell out of Dodge. So
one of our questions here is from, let's see if I can get the name down again. Kent. Is there any concern about hiring the guys at this age? I know that sounds a little silly, but it is worth mentioning. I think Butch Miller, when he comes in, is 44 years old.
I don't think so. I didn't even realize they were that old, but, probably should have. They've been around for quite a while, but no, they were in great shape.
Scott has a great question. He says, during the 94 run, who came up with I'm going to screw this up, Hongi gimmick? The idea that they were like kissing noses with fans as opposed to licking faces. This, I guess, is like the evolution. Cause by 94, probably not as cool to do as it was back in 88, but it is a nice little, adjustment.
I have absolutely no recollection of that at all, but I could see it happening and kind of, way.
Matt says, if they had been broken up and pushed to singles, who would have been the Shawn and who would have been the Marty?
Boy, that's a tough question.
Right.
I mean, Luke had more experience as a single, but I dare say Butch had more personality.
Ivor wants to know, did Vince ever do the Bushwacker walk backstage?
All the time. Oh, yeah. Doesn't everybody do the Bushwacker march backstage?
I think people will be this week on SmackDown. Marco wants to know, any good road stories about traveling with the Bushwackers?
You know, other than that one night, I never actually traveled with them as much. Butch was about as close to a, family man and very low key. He liked to have a few beers. He liked to have a good time, but wasn't wild and crazy. Luke liked to have a good time, but Luke was pretty mellow. Now, back in the day, I'd heard stories of them kind of getting out of hand and having more fun, if you will. But when they came to WWE, they had pretty much damn matured and just wanted to get their job done and move on. Other than having a few drinks in the bar, they were pretty mellow.
Well, last question, then we'll wrap this one up. Jay Gatto says, was the popularity of Australian stuff in the late 80s, like Crocodile Dundee, the Energizer battery guy, etc., the main reason for the Bushwackers gimmick being created?
No, it was, if anything, I would give Outback Jack for Crocodile Dundee. That was probably a playoff there. But as far as the Bushwackers, who were Kiwis, New Zealand, it was just their talent as a tag team. And these were two guys, journeymen that had been in the business for a long time, that wanted to come in. We wanted to bring them in and thought they'd work. So it wasn't off of, because they weren't Australian, and people get that mixed up a lot of times. And I think one can substitute for the other, but no, it wasn't.
Well, that's going to do it for us this week here. We hope you guys enjoyed a stroll down memory lane with the old Bushwackers. Ladies and gentlemen, throw us a follow if you can. We're at Prichard Show. If you've got a question for Shane, we want to hear it. Don't forget, you can get all these shows early and ad free over at adfreeshows.com, but right here on Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard.
Rock on.
Hey guys, it's the hardcore legend Mick Foley here, and I need to call a quick timeout, a brief timeout, because I wanted to tell your listeners what I have been telling Foley is Pod listeners for a while now, about all the cool things happening over on adfreeshows.com.
The wait is over, as an all-new Conversations with Conrad is finally here. He created the soundtrack to so many of our childhood memories, with iconic themes like The Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Ultimate Warrior, and many more. The legendary Jim Johnston sits down with Conrad for a 2-hour career retrospective. Available now only on adfreeshows.com.
Literally started, I was watching some tape of the guy, and I just started doing this to the kind of what I felt like was the tempo of him running. And then I recorded that. And then just over that, you're just doing. It's so simple, but that's what felt like him.
That's just a small taste, a sampling, if you will, of what we have waiting for you. With 4 levels to choose from. 4. See for yourself why ad-free shows is the best value in wrestling today. Sign up now, right now, at adfreeshows.com. Yeah.